I'm Anthony Forrest, the president of Steel Cod, and I'm here with John Beresford, our VP of Sales, ready to discuss all things appliances. All right, John, we got a really good versus here for outdoor cooking, and depending on when you listen to this, is appropriate for the time of year. This is Weber versus Napoleon gas grills. What's fascinating about this versus is this wouldn't have even been a conversation 10 years ago, at least not worth talking about. But Napoleon's made some
Mhm.
really gaining momentum, made some real strides. So where both brands have passionate followings, both brands are strong performance in this category. But we're talking about right now, we're recording this in 2026. How do you want to kick off Weber versus Napoleon for gas grills?
Well, I like the way that you kicked it off because you're right. 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been a conversation. But here's how I would further that point is I would say that if you walked out and talked to your neighbors right now and said, hey, I need a gas grill, what would you recommend? They'd still say Weber, right? I mean, because Weber was the undisputed leader in gas grills for decades, forever, right? I mean, they built one of the most trusted brands in outdoor cooking, if not the most trusted brand in outdoor cooking. So for a long time, if somebody asked you what to buy, the answer was always the same: buy a Weber, right? And if you went to retail establishments, you said, "What should I do?" They say, "Buy a Weber." It was the easiest answer in all of appliance sales, right? Napoleon existed in the market, let's use your time frame 10 years ago, right? But, they were still growing their presence in a lot of these regions. And the interesting part for me is really how dramatically the balance has shifted over the last decade. And really, I'll narrow that down to probably the last 5 years or so. Napoleon didn't try to compete with Weber by copying, and you see the copycat lifestyle in appliances all the time, and you figured it was natural for them to go out and just start copying Weber, but they didn't. They really tried to compete with them by pushing their engineering a little bit further down three paths. They focused on burner performance, they focused on heat control, and they focused on cooking versatility overall. And look, all the while, Weber was still producing really solid grills and had largely continued, evolving the architecture that made them successful for so many years too. So the conversation today, we have to throw reputation out the window, I think, for this, right? It's really about which company is pushing the category forward today. And that's why I think that this conversation gets interesting.
So this is where I love, our audience are primarily appliance salespeople. And if you're listening, that means you care about your job, you care about what the customer results are going to be. And reputation, especially with grills, is not, past performance is not. It's what have you done for me lately? Is what are you doing today? Because I'm not buying a Weber from 10 years ago. I'm buying a Weber that's being produced today versus a Napoleon that's
Yeah.
being produced today. So it's definitely worth this breakdown and that past performance. I'm sorry you have a lot of championships under your belt, but we're playing it this season. We want to see who wins this
Yeah.
season. So let's break this down. Let's start with the heat control philosophy between the two. What are you seeing of the differences?
So, you know, obviously heat is the foundation of grilling, right? But the real challenge isn't just about producing heat. It's really about controlling it. And we talk about this all the time indoors. So why wouldn't the same principles count outdoors? It's funny, it almost gets thrown away. You know, Weber grills traditionally rely on a pretty straightforward burner architecture, right? Linear burners running front to back, right? It's a simple system and historically has been extremely reliable. But it actually also limits how precisely you can manage heat zones across the entire cooking surface. And Napoleon approached this a little bit differently. They spent years really refining burner configurations and heat distribution because they really felt like that was the avenue where they could win and start taking some share from, let's call them, a legacy brand. I mean, they built the whole category, and it's really hard to pull retail off of a legacy brand. They would really have to screw something up for them to just, because the story's easy to tell. People have heard about it, right? So it's really hard. So this was their way of really saying, this is how we can get some share from them. So their system ended up producing stronger searing zones while still maintaining temperature stability across the entire grill, which ultimately gave the cook more control. So you can run high heat on one side of your grill and really moderate heat on the other side without having to constantly fight these temperature swings that you would in any other configuration. So for people that took grilling pretty seriously, these seriously grillers, that kind of control really does make a noticeable difference between the two. So it was really starting to stand out when they came out with this platform.
So let's keep going down the cooking design system, specifically in the grates, because there's a pretty good difference in here. How does that really matter between the two brands?
Yeah, Weber we know uses traditionally straight cooking grates. They're super durable and they do the job pretty well. No matter what kind you get, whether it's the enamel grates that tend to rot out over the course of time or the stainless ones that they have right now, pretty straightforward. They're durable and they do the job, right? But Napoleon introduced wave cooking grids. Okay, and at first glance you say, like they just did this for cosmetic reasons, right? That's what I thought when I first saw them. I'm like, what's the big deal here? But it's not. That wave pattern creates more contact points between the food and the cooking surface, right? And that's actually going to improve your searing overall. And it also prevents smaller foods from falling through the grates, which we know is a massive problem for the standard grill grates that are out there, whether it's vegetables or shrimp or just even smaller cuts of meat if you cut it up before you grill it, which by the way, don't do that. But anyways, it's a subtle design change that actually improves how people can cook on that grill. So I underestimated it when it first hit. I'm like, is there really enough value there? Then I cooked on it and I say, wow, this is a really big difference. So yeah, that's huge to call that out.
So this one, John, we try to make our content evergreen. You can watch it whenever and it's applicable. But this one, we need to. This is
Yeah.
applicable in March of 2026. Is manufacturing. You know, where these products are manufactured plays a role in terms of quality and raw materials and stuff like that. What are the differences between these two brands?
Yeah, I mean, let's call it what it is, right? Weber used to manufacture almost entirely in the United States, and today much of their product is their production is overseas. They're starting to bring some of it back, but it is what it is, right? And it changed, okay? It changed a lot about the product, okay? So for a long time, Weber's reputation was closely tied to American manufacturing. They actually built their reputation off of it, right? And those earlier grills, I can tell you definitively, were extremely robust, right? They were heavy materials. They were very consistent construction. And the manufacturing culture was really tightly connected to their engineering teams. That matters, right? That discipline is really what helped Weber build the trust that they had in the category, which is still kind of out there today, deservedly or not. Over time, the company, let's put it politely, I mean, they scaled globally, right? So production ended up moving as a result of that, and that shift, of course, isn't unusual in any industry now. Many brands manufacture internationally, as we know, but the as the production moves further and further away from the engineering center, something changes, right? The distance between the design and the manufacturing increases. And sometimes details start slipping, right? And sometimes they're small things, right? And sometimes it's fit and finish, and sometimes it's material thicknesses and component consistency. And none of that suddenly turns the product into a bad grill. I think today Weber makes a good grill. But if you've been around the category long enough, you can see the difference between the Weber grills that were built years ago and the ones that are coming off the line today. And at the same time, Napoleon was moving in the complete opposite direction. They were aggressively really refining their engineering and improving the robustness of their cooking systems. So over the last decade, or so, let's call 5 years, you had two different trajectories happening at the same time in the market. And where Weber was leaning on a reputation that was built over many years, Napoleon was building a new reputation through this really current engineering performance. And, eventually those lines crossed, right?
So this last one I really like is this is the kind of the innovation of these two brands. I mean, we've been speaking about engineering and whatnot on these brands, but innovation really matters in this category, and you've seen a lot more of it in the last 5, 10 years, where people are cooking more outdoors, and they care about the results. They're not just grilling burgers and hot dogs. So innovation matters here. Who do you like in these brands between their innovation momentum?
Yeah. Listen, this is where I became kind of a huge fan of Napoleon, because they actually treated grilling as a platform that can keep evolving, right? You can keep trying new things. You can keep doing new stuff. They introduced infrared burners, like we talked about earlier, right? Improved rotisserie systems, expanded cooking accessories, refining their heat management. All the while, they continue pushing on what a gas grill can do. And again, Weber still builds solid grills, but Napoleon has been moving a heck of a lot faster. And in performance-driven categories like this, that kind of momentum has to matter, right? I mean, the brands that continue improving eventually reshape the hierarchy. And listen, Weber's raising their hand on this too, because they started bringing out all of these accessory-driven platforms and things like that after Napoleon really started to catch fire here. So even Weber realizes, okay, we need to start moving in this direction. So I think that's when I became an instant fan of what Napoleon was doing, because I could see them continually try to, make a better mousetrap, which I'm always a fan of brands that do that.
All right, so before we pick our winner, John's been tipping his hand this whole time, but before we pick our winner, just put together what the evaluation of these grills are on, because again, we stripped away brand from this. How are you evaluating these two?
Okay. Heat output, temperature control, cooking surface design, burner performance, overall cooking versatility. Again, we've already talked about both brands making quality products, okay? So we can throw that out of the debate. But one brand has been pushing the engineering envelope a hell of a lot harder over the past, let's call it decade, 5 years, whatever time frame you want to use. So 10 or 15 years ago, the answer, it would have been a runaway. We talked about it. But if you define it based off of everything that I just listed right now and just the evolution of these companies and what they seem to be focused on and all that kind of stuff, I think it's a clear runaway. And it's not in the way that it would have been. I think Napoleon is a clear, better grill in the marketplace right now than Weber is. And it's not to say that Weber can't change. And I think that Weber is making strides to change, because I think they see it too. And I certainly am not in those meetings, and I don't know anything, but I've got to believe that they do because of what Napoleon continuously keeps putting out in the market. So if you are looking for a new grill and you're asking me today, I'm buying a Napoleon grill. It's a better grill.
We drop a new episode every day of the week, including weekends. Don't forget to rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.